Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to be talking about how I start some of my foundation work with contacts. This is a class at Sports Academy. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be running, but I will be doing a full 6-week class that will discuss how I start my foundation work, which is a little bit of what we're going to see in this video, all the way through putting it onto contacts and what the finished product should look like. So keep an eye on my page and on the Fenzi Dog Sports page, and you can kind of get an idea of when that class is going to run. So this is Trip, and I'm going to be showing just some of how I start my foundation work for contacts. Obviously Trip is older, he's already done all of this sort of stuff. It's how Jimmy trained him from the time he was a little bitty baby. It's how he has his contacts now. Which I will post after this video is done. I will post a video of one of his runs so you can see what his finished product looks like on the contact. The way I teach my contacts and my contact behaviors is that I want all of the focus to be on their rear end. I do not want my dogs to be coming down the contact and slamming their shoulders or all the weight up on their front end and pushing into the ground with their front end. I want all the focus to be on their rear. So when I start them as little puppies, I want to really focus on their rear end is where I want their focus to be, so that when we move into the contacts, that is where their focus is. They're not focusing on their front end to come down the contacts. They're focusing on where their rear end needs to be to hit those contacts. The next thing that I also want to look for, I do not require a position. As in, I do not force a specific contact position on my dogs. So I do not force them to sit, to stand, or to lie down. I let them choose the position. I want them to do what is mentally and physically comfortable for them. Now, in the beginning, I do ask for a sit, which is why we see Trip sitting on this mat right here. Mainly because I want to teach them how to shift their weight to the rear end, and the sit seems to be the best way to help them learn to shift their weight back onto the rear, so I can get that nice weight shift so we're not putting so much weight and so much stress on their shoulders and on their elbows. Now, when they start running and we start applying this to the full-size contacts, I do not get as stringent about their sit. Once I feel like they understand their contact performance, and I watch videos of them and see, are they shifting their weight, especially on the A-frame, are they shifting their weight to the rear and coming down into that position, then I do not become as strict about you must be in a sit. But in the very beginning stages, I definitely kind of want that sit just to help them learn to shift their weight back. So how I teach their contacts, this is a little blue mat. You can get it from Amazon. I'm pretty sure I ordered this from Amazon. I think it was 10 bucks. It's a aerobics mat. It's like a step mat. It's really soft, squishy foam. I've had this for about 2 years maybe now. And you can see, I don't know how well you see in the video, but their toenails have dug into it and stuff, but it is held up really well. It's lightweight, so I can take it with me anywhere. And I like the fact that it's kind of squishy and soft. So he already knows what he's supposed to be doing on the mat. But when I have them as young dogs and I want to start teaching them, I want them to focus on putting their rear end on that mat. So I want to start teaching them this kind of rear touch behavior with their feet. How I start teaching that is I want to build value for their rear end, and I want to build value for that foam mat. And I want to put those two together, that I want their rear feet to touch that foam mat, and that's where their happy place is. So when I start doing it, come here buddy. So when I start doing it, come here, sit. I usually have food in my hand, and I'll put the mat fairly close behind them, and I will just kind of back them up. Go ahead and stand up. I will just kind of back them up, yes. And when I get a foot touch, and even there where he just put one foot on, I'm going to tell him yes, and what a good boy he is, and give him his food. And I'm going to keep doing this until pretty soon I start getting this kind of behavior, where I feel that they are, go ahead buddy, that they're looking, for the mat with their rear feet. I'm not attaching a word to it right now. I just want him to learn that when I kind of move him back, he looks for his mat with his rear feet, and I want that behavior. So in the beginning, I'm just looking for rear foot touching that mat. Once I feel that my dog is looking for the mat, like he is, just like that, and I feel that they are starting to understand that this is where I want them to be. I want their rear feet to touch that mat. Then I'm going to start asking for that sit behavior. Everybody. So when I back him up to the mat now, once he gets on it, I'm going to ask, oops, you're kind of on it. I'm going to ask for a sit and give him his rewards. Let's do that again. You're a good boy. We're going to back him up. Sit. Yes. And all I'm looking for from him right now is that I want him to acknowledge the mat, I want him to touch the mat, and now we're looking for that sit behavior. And again, the sit is not something that I am going to be concrete about. I don't want to marry it. I just want him to start learning when we get on that mat, we sit. And as we get into more advanced contact, discussions, I want that sit is strictly to help them learn how to shift his weight back on his contacts. I personally love his contacts. Jimmy trained him 100% and did everything with the mat, did all this foundation work with the mat, and then applied the mat to the contacts. And he has beautiful contacts. Like I said, I'll put a video down in the comments of this video that shows how well he shifts his weight back, and he does not do a sit anymore on his contacts. He comes down, he slides nice into his contacts, and does a really pretty 2-on, 2-off. Which we'll maybe talk about in different videos about contact positioning and where I want the dog's body in relation to the contact. So now we've got our dog backing up to the mat, and we've got them sitting on the mat. So now I'm going to start asking for this behavior in association with a word. So his word for his contacts is hit it. So as I back him up now, you're being a good boy, come here. As I back him up, we're going to back him up to the mat. Just before he hits it, touches the mat, I'm going to say, hit it. Good boy. And start applying that word to the mat. So eventually what I'm looking for is my goal when I'm doing this foundation work is that I want to be able to stand here, everybody, and say, hit it. And he will go, he looks for his mat, and he touches it. Now, the first question is usually, we've been backing him up, don't you want him to back up to the mat? So he learned to run, and he does that. He runs, and he spins, and he sits on it. I was a little bit concerned through his foundation work if that was going to not be good when we applied it to contacts. It made absolutely no difference whatsoever. We back-chained him down to contact. He learned all of his contact behaviors with that mat, and having him do the run and spin and sit on it has never been an issue, so I have let it go. Allie has also learned all of her contacts through this mat, and she does the same thing. So main thing when I'm backing them up in the foundation stages is just to teach them, it's their rear end I'm focusing on. What I don't want is to accidentally teach the dog if we bring, oh God, you knocked right on my hand, get it. What we don't want to accidentally teach them is if we bring them forward over the mat, is I don't want them to learn somehow that their front feet is associated with that mat. If I'm late, or excuse me, if I'm off with my yes command or anything like that, and I happen to reward them here instead of when their rear feet are on it, I don't want them to learn something different. So I back them up to the mat so that they are really learning it is their rear end that I want on that mat. Good point. So what I'm looking for is that I should be able to have him here. Excuse me, come here. And I should be able to say, hit it. And we go and we sit on our mat like a good boy. Well done. Okay. So that is what I'm looking for as my kind of end behavior with this foundational work, is that when I say hit it, he goes and he looks for that mat to go and put his rear end on. What I'm eventually going to do with this is I'm going to take this mat and we're going to apply it to his contacts. I'm going to stand at the bottom of the contact and I'm going to do the same thing, kind of back him up and his rear feet touch the mat until he starts learning, there's my mat with a contact. It's the same principle. What we did do with both him and Allie is because this mat, is about an inch or so thick, is that I didn't want to put the mat on the contact and cause any sort of weird body look. So what I didn't want to have happen is have this mat that's raised up, stick that on the contact, and now when they come down, they're funny looking. So what I ended up doing is we used a bath mat. And I did the exact same thing, and he picked it up like that, was teach them rear feet on a bath mat. So now I can take that bath mat, put it at the bottom of my contact, and they'll run down and I'll get the same idea as this step mat. I did not want to have this step mat on the bottom of my contacts. I feel that having that much of a height difference on the contacts as well is going to start kind of messing with the body mechanics of what I wanted on my actual contacts. So I didn't want any height whatsoever. So we just did the same thing with the bath mat. I still like teaching in the beginning stages with this raised mat just because it really makes them have to step and put a foot back. And again, we're building value for their rear end and their rear end associated with that mat. So I really wanted them to have to feel stepping up onto that mat. So I still do tons of games with this mat, even with him. He is over 2 years old now. I think he's 2.5. And he's trialing, he's doing extremely well. But we still come back and play these little games. You can't see behind this tree here, but there is stairs that go this way. And I did, or Jimmy actually did, tons of work with stairs and teaching him, you know, when we said go hit it, he would, you know, go over to the stairs, put his rear feet up on the bottom step and his front feet are down on the floor. And that was just another way to kind of work some of his contact behavior. And same with, again, it's all about building value, is doing all this foundation work, is that I want to be able to have him here. Come here, buddy boy. Sit. Nicely done. Around. Hit it. Yes, sir. That's such a good man. Around. Hit it. Yeah. Look at you. Well done. Yeah. So I want, just like that, that is showing me that he has a lot of value for that mat, and we can add different things to it. We can add going around and he'll go and find his mat. So when I go to apply it to the contacts, I know he has a solid foundation of going and sitting on his little mat. I do lots and lots of cone work stuff too. So with a cone, you could do the same thing as go around a cone or two and go and touch his mat. It's the same principle. And I really want them to have a strong foundation with putting their rear end on the mat like that before I ever take it to the contacts. We'll touch a little bit on contact positioning. So with both him, the babies as I call them, both him and Allie, both do rear end touches on the contacts. I want all their focus on the rear end. And they both do it 2 on, 2 off. The difference being is that their 2 on, 2 off, when he comes down, like say the A-frame, his back feet are at the very bottom of the A-frame. So what that gives me, what I'm looking for, is when he stops on the A-frame, is I want his whole top line to be nice and level. You can have it. I don't want his rear feet high on the A-frame and his front feet like this, kind of, you know, low, and then the angle creates a dip or a V in their spine. So both him and Allie, when I went to apply this to the contacts, I took my bath mat and made sure where I put it, really made sure that as they came down and their rear feet, you know, were focused on the mat, where they put their rear feet keeps their top line nice and level and straight. So I didn't get any sort of V going on coming down. And that to me is extremely important. And again, I do not force a position on the dogs. Allie comes down, and on her dog walk, she comes into a sliding down, and that's what she likes to do. She comes all the way down to the very bottom, and her front end, basically in a down, is on the ground, and her rear end is on the board, and that's what she likes to do. That is what is mentally and physically comfortable for her, and I'm not going to ask her to do something that isn't comfortable. On the A-frame, she does a nice 2 on, 2 off. He does the same thing. He comes all the way to the bottom, both contacts, and he stands. But his foundation is sitting, and so is Allie's. And I just am teaching the sit to help with that initial weight shift, because I want them to come down and do that nice weight shift down there at the bottom. But I am not going to force that position upon them. I always let my dogs choose. Again, not only physically comfortable, but mentally comfortable, what works for them. So I'm probably going to do some more live videos, and we'll probably talk more about contacts and things like that. Any questions that you guys have after this video is posted, I will come back through today and comment and answer any questions. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comments, and I will answer them as best I can. And like I said, I'll put a video up of him of his finished product with the contacts. And I'm also working on how to download this video and then I'll reload it up onto YouTube so that it can be watched at any time off my YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/fluidmotionagility. Thanks everyone for coming.